How do you feel? So you were also in the organizing committee, you were the secretary. So how do you feel about it? How did it go? How was your
Yeah.
2 days, sir?
So I think this effort by Dr. Sharan, Dr. Manjul, Dr. Gurneet is really admirable because lesional surgery for movement disorders unfortunately is a technique that has been, I would say, forgotten by the neurosurgical community, not only in our country but all over the world. And the reason I use the term unfortunate is because lesional surgery is not only very effective but it's highly economical. And for those of us who practice neurosurgery in a country like India, we know cost plays a major role in decision making, not only for the neurosurgeons but for also for the patients. So what am I talking about? I am talking about a technique called deep brain stimulation, which is the other alternative technique for a number of these conditions which are under the fabric of movement disorders. And the cost for a deep brain stimulation surgery is in the region of something like 8 to 10 lakhs, which is definitely beyond the reach of, I would say, 95% of our patient population. So what happens to these patients who cannot afford DBS? As of today, they just don't undergo surgery, which could have really changed the quality of life for these patients and the caregivers. So that's why I use the term unfortunate, because for a fraction of that cost, lesional surgery could have provided similar, if not even better results than deep brain stimulation. And therefore, this meeting is a very important meeting because it's probably opened the eyes of several neurosurgeons who have attended this meeting, and they in turn will take this message back to their colleagues and hopefully to the patients, and also start practicing lesional surgery in their own centers. So I am really excited to be here. Yes, I am a part of the organizing team. I am actually the organizing chairman of this conference, and the reason I am the organizing conference is not because I have contributed in a big way, but I can take partial credit for this conference happening because 2 years ago in this very same city, during one of the meetings of the Indian Society for Stereotactic and Functional Neurosurgery, while Dr. Sharan and others like Gurmeet and Dr. Manjul and I were talking about how it is so sad that very few neurosurgeons are practicing lesional surgery in our country, we said that we need to do something about it. And I, being the senior most amongst them, said that, I would like to see this happening sooner rather than later, because I didn't have very much time left as an active neurosurgeon. And I put this proposal, and Dr. Sharan readily accepted it. And that's how this conference, the seeds of this conference was sown 2 years back, and finally it has happened. And the success of this meeting, I would say, has definitely exceeded our expectations. And we have, I'm told, about 150 or 160 registrants, and they have been in the hall almost throughout all sessions for the last 2.5 days. So therefore, yes, I am not only excited to be here, but I am so happy that finally lesional surgery probably will get its due in the coming years, thanks to this initial effort. The efforts don't end with this meeting. This is just the beginning.
It's lovely. So, sir, about the book, how did you like it?
Yeah. So, I would like to actually read a excerpt from the review that I had written for this book, a part of which is reproduced in the on the back cover. So Dr. Sharan had shared 3 chapters. The first of I think they are the first 3 chapters of this book with me, and asked me to review it for him. And so just let me get hold of my review. So I will read the entire review, which is very brief in fact. Rebooting the Brain is an interesting book authored by an unusual and creative neurosurgeon, Dr. Sharan Srinivasan. It documents not only his personal journey as a doctor and neurosurgeon, but also defines some key principles that he, along with his wife Dr. Pratibha, discovered during their shared journey as entrepreneurs, and the term that he uses for people like him, brain rebooters. Some of these principles, including 8 weeks to 4 weeks, X to Y that is, and care par ray framework. Told in an easy and often humorous tone, this book is not only informative for patients suffering from any kind of neurological disability and their caregivers, but will be of interest to neurosurgeons, neurologists, and rehabilitation therapists. So, I encourage as many of you as possible to get hold of this book, so that you can go ahead and enjoy delving into the realms of neurorehabilitation and neuromodulation, which the author has collectively termed functional neurosciences. So after the wonderful launch of the book yesterday, I hope that this book becomes popular amongst patients, caregivers, and doctors.
Thank you, sir. Sir, personally, I liked the message that you gave at the inauguration, urging people not to be scared and to come seek the help of neurosurgeons and not to stigmatize it.
Absolutely.
So, could you please tell that, because I genuinely want to share it with the online community.
Sure. So, there is a misconception that neurosurgery is very dangerous, especially when it relates to surgery of the brain. This perception probably was true maybe 30, 40, maybe 50 years ago, but we have come a long way since then. I trained in neurosurgery more than 40 years ago. So, the scenario was pretty dismal for patients at that time, to the extent that several patients, once counseled about the possible risks of surgery, would opt out of surgery and rather die from the disease, unfortunately, than take the risks of surgery. But the situation has changed drastically due to a number of advances that have been made, not only to the techniques that are available, to the diagnostic methods which allow us to diagnose neurosurgical disorders at a very early stage, and therefore the surgery is not so morbid and not so dangerous or risky. The anesthesia techniques that have improved, and a lot of other advances in medical sciences. So, if you were to ask me to put a number on the number of patients or the proportion or percentage of patients who run the risk of having something bad happen to them after a neurosurgical procedure, I would put that number at less than 1%. I'm talking about risks of serious complications. Minor complications may be a slightly more, but these are serious complications, unfortunately including death. I am not downplaying the risk of serious complications, but the proportion is very small. I often counsel my patients about the risks of neurosurgery by saying, it's akin to a risk of going on the hazardous roads in our cities. I ask them, how did you reach my clinic? Some say they came by road, some say they traveled by train. So I ask them, have you heard of road traffic accidents happening to people who come on two-wheelers, cars, buses? They say, yes, we have heard of that. I ask them, have you heard of passengers who have died due to a train accident? They said, yes, we have heard of that. But I said, did you still, after hearing all these stories, not make this journey by road or by train? They said, yes, otherwise how do we come here? So I say to them that the risks or the decision to accept the risks of neurosurgery are similar to that. You have to undergo the surgery for your own benefit. You're not undergoing surgery without any indication. That means you need to undergo this surgery to save your life or to have a better quality of life. And therefore, you accept that minimal risk of something bad happening to you. So therefore, I urge you that you or your relative or your friend, that don't think of neurosurgery, especially of the brain or even the spine, as something so risky or so dangerous that you avoid it completely. If your neurosurgeon tells you, somebody who you trust, you can seek a second opinion, third opinion. If 2 or 3 neurosurgeons tell you, you must undergo this surgery, then please do take their advice seriously. Yes, think about the surgery, think about the risks and benefits that have been discussed with you, but at the end of the day, please do take the, I wouldn't say the chance, but take the right decision of undergoing surgery when the disease is in its early stages. Don't wait for the disease to become so complex, so far advanced, that actually what happens is the risks of surgery are multiplied manifold when you undergo surgery at a later stage. Don't wait for that moment. Do the right thing after, of course, careful consideration.
It's lovely. So my last question to you.
Yes.
Why did you become a neurosurgeon?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So the reason I became a neurosurgeon is not a reason that I would advise any young doctor to take up neurosurgery, with that reason. Interestingly, when I was to join medicine, when I applied to join MBBS at the Christian Medical College, Vellore, in those days they used to ask us to write an autobiographical note. It's a statement of purpose in one sense, and one of the things that you're supposed to put down there is, why do you want to become a doctor? And I very foolishly, I confess, because I was just 16 years of age, I very foolishly and naively wrote, I want to become a doctor because I want to become a neurosurgeon. And how did I hear this word neurosurgeon? I had read a story of a neurosurgeon in Reader's Digest, and that was my introduction to neurosurgery. My father was a doctor. Yes, he was a doctor in the army, but he was a general sort of doctor. He had not specialized in neurosurgery. I had never met a neurosurgeon. So that's the wrong way of deciding to become a neurosurgeon. But This kind of intention to become neurosurgeon got strengthened because of a very influential mentor, Professor K.V. Mathai, who was one of the pioneering neurosurgeons at the Christian Medical College, Vellore, who taught me as a medical student. He taught us actually clinical neurology, and the way he taught clinical neurology just bowled me over. It convinced me that although my decision to become a neurosurgeon was taken without knowledge, without any information about what neurosurgery is all about, but seeing him, he became an example of a neurosurgeon that I wanted to become. And he has played a profound role in not only my becoming a neurosurgeon. I was fortunate that I could train with him. Unfortunately, he is no more, God bless his soul, but he was the reason why my initial foolish decision actually turned out very well for me. And I would think that the advice I would give to any young doctor who wants to become a neurosurgeon is talk to a person whom you admire in the same field of neurosurgery, and hopefully you will get a mentor. If you want to become a neurosurgeon, you will get a mentor like I did in the form of Professor K.V. Mathai.
Thank you so much. So that was lovely. Thank you so much.
Sure. And he then said, when you get married, tell your to-be wife that she will be your second wife. So I said, why, sir? Because he said neurosurgery will always be your first wife, and she will be a demanding and jealous wife. So remind your real wife that she will always be second wife. So that's true. That means that she will be neglected, the real wife, family, and that is to a large extent true. And that was one of the main reasons I tried to dissuade, not only me, my wife who is an ENT surgeon, tried to dissuade our son from neurosurgery. But guess what? You know how children are. You tell them, don't go there. They only want to go there. So now, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever way you want to look at it, he became a neurosurgeon, and not only that, he is in the United States. He is settled. He's become a neurosurgeon in the US. He's trained in the US.
Okay.
So that's how life goes, you see.